Anyone got a pencil? Hello and welcome to the Mixtape podcast. My name's Mark and I am your host. Thank you so much for tuning in for this week's episode. Every week on the show, I ask my guests to make up an imaginary mixtape and pick 6 tracks for it. I've had some incredible chats. They're already there in the archives, just waiting for you to stumble across them. I've had chats with Steve Kilby from The Church, Rowetta from The Happy Mondays, Rick from Ash. I've had Al Anderson, one of the original Wailers. I've had Clint Boone from Your Spiral Carpets. I've had Donita Sparks from L7. I've had Scott Kirkland from The Crystal Method. There's lots and lots of episodes sitting there waiting for you to discover. If you enjoy this week's episode, please feel free to rate it 5 stars on Spotify and or jump up to the top of the page and hit that old follow or subscribe button, and you'll be notified every time there is a new episode. Catch up with everything I'm doing by going to www.themixtapepodcast.com. That's enough for the intro. I hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hello, welcome to another mixtape. This week on the show, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Dom from Datura4. How are you, Dom?
I'm good, thanks, Mark. Thank you.
Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you giving me your time to come and have a chat. So we'll just run through. There's a fair bit going on for you at the moment, mate. So Invisible Hits is your new album out now.
Well, Invisible Hits is, funny enough, it's a compilation. The last album that we did was Neanderthal Jam, which came out at the end of 2022. And then we toured on that, and we went to Europe last year. It's October, we toured Europe. And then the record label wanted to release a compilation, which was basically tracks, because all our albums have been released on vinyl and CD, obviously, and through, all the digital platforms. But when it came to the vinyl issue of all the albums that we'd done, and we'd done five albums, there was always a couple of tracks that got left off. So, we had to make that hard decision of which songs that we, leave off. Obviously, they're available on the CD and on the digital platforms, but yeah, there was always 1 or 2 tracks that didn't make the vinyl because of the length that, maximum length that you can have on either side of a vinyl record. So they said, well, you've got a few tracks there. Why don't you put them all onto one vinyl? We'll release that as like a compilation of tracks that for the vinyl collectors, basically. And we added a couple of outtakes that had never been released before. So that's Invisible Hits, basically, which has come out, and it stacks up pretty well. There's some pretty good songs on there, and songs that we felt, well, I wish we put that on there, but we had to make that hard decision at the time. And a couple of the outtakes that are on there is a cover of the Creedence Clearwater Revival song, a very obscure one from the first album called Walk on the Water. And then there was some 7-inch releases that came out during the 4th album. A song called Phoenix, which didn't appear on the album, and Rule My World. Yeah, that's how Invisible Hits has sort of come together. We weren't expecting that the label would want to do something like that, so they just came out of the blue and they messaged us to say, look, we want to release something. We've had a lot of interest in the last album, so we want to, capitalise on that momentum.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm sure as a vinyl collector myself, there's nothing you like more than those sort of B-side and sort of outtake compilations. Like, for me, some of them are the best albums by some bands, like the Master Plan from Oasis. That's their second best album in my opinion, and it's all their B-sides and album tracks and stuff. So yeah, fantastic collection. And where's the best place for people to get that from? Is it available through Bandcamp? Is Datura4.com? Is that the best place to go?
Well, if you wanted to get the vinyl issue, I know it's quite expensive to get it through the actual label. It's Bomb Records is a distributor that works with Alive Records. So I know that you can get it locally. There's a few stores here in Perth, and what's it? I'm trying to think of the store that has it. There's one in Leederville, and there's one in Fremantle.
Sound One in Leederville.
Yeah, they probably have it. Diabolic in Mount Hawthorn.
Yeah.
And Junction Records in Freo. So
yeah.
they're three stores I know have got it, and I know it's been distributed in Australia through MGM, and it's available, in Melbourne and Sydney and Adelaide and stuff. So
Shout out those record stores, I think, because those names come up again and again, especially Diabolic when I speak to local perfects about where they can get the physical copies of their albums, and those names come up like quite often. Dada's and Diabolic and Junction Records, they're fantastic supporters of the perfect.
Dada's would have it as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'll maybe put a link in. Obviously, if you're listening on the radio, then it's Dada Records, and you'd have picked up the names there. If you're listening on the podcast or on the YouTube channel, then I'll put a link in the description to their websites, and so you can get along there and grab a physical copy of the album. And you mentioned briefly, Dom, touring Europe last year. How was that for you, mate? That must have been a bit of a buzz.
Yeah, fantastic. We toured there in 2019, and that went well. It was pretty much, just going there to see how it would go, because it was our first tour to Europe. I'd been there many times before with my other bands, the Stems and DM3. So I've got a bit of a profile there in Europe. So Datura4 had already released, it was their third album when we got there, when we managed to get there. So it was more of, let's see how we go. It's different to those bands that I mentioned previously, in that it's heavier, a bluesy kind of psychedelic rock. I guess people might call it stoner rock, whatever. But we went to have a look to see how we would go, and it went pretty well. So we were very excited to go back. And obviously, the pandemic sort of fouled that for us. We were going to go back the following year, and then again the year after that. And it wasn't until last year that we were able to get back there. And what we noticed was the crowded audience had actually grown, and the people were singing us songs, and most of the gigs were pretty well packed. So it really, really went well. It was a very successful tour for us. We want to go back there.
Just following you on the Insta and seeing some of your posts from that tour, it looked like, packed houses and everyone was really buzzing off the shows. Is it the Datura4 Band, your Instagram handle? Just give that a quick plug.
Yes, Datura4 Band, yes.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Again, I'll put a link in the description to that. If you're listening on the podcast, I'll just go through your tour dates real quick, Dom, that you got coming up in March. 16th of March, a fire station in Busso. I'm there 2 weeks previous to that, so I'm going to miss that. Never mind. 23rd of March, Frothcraft in Bunbury. 24th of March, Clancy's Dunsborough, and 30th of March, Clancy's Frio. Where's the best place for tickets, Dom? Is it your Instagram or your website? Where can people get all the info on the tickets for those shows?
Yeah, look, if they go on our website, the gigs are listed, and so they can just click on whatever venue they're sort of interested in going to, and that sort of takes you to the tickets, So, like, for example, Froth, the place is down south, free entry anyway.
Right, okay,
The only ticketed venue is Clancy's in Frio, so that's
right, okay,
a couple of other bands playing with us as well.
Yeah.
It's a sort of mini run, I guess, of gigs that we're doing in March, and will be pretty much our first gigs back on the scene.
Yeah. I love the fire station in Busso. I've been there loads. They do some lovely craft beers in there. And I saw, do you know the Reinhardts? They're a Perth Hills band.
I do know them. I know them quite well, actually. I actually produced the last album for them.
Oh, no way. That's a cracking album. I've got that on vinyl. I've got the green vinyl of that. Yeah, superb job, mate. Well done. Brilliant job. Yeah. I had Benny on the podcast, and I remember him saying now, Dom Mariani produced the record. I just twigged it. Sorry, mate. I do apologise. Yeah, right. I remember him telling me you'd done it. Yeah, superb album. Yeah, I love Reinhardt's. I'm putting on a benefit show for the radio station that I work for, and I tried to get Benny and Reinhardt's to come and play the gig in Kalamunda, but they had prior commitments. I was gutted, so I really wanted them to come and play. But I've got fantastic. Matty T. Wall's playing for us instead. So yeah, another fantastic artist. So yeah, really, really lucky to have him. Yeah, Hillstock. www.kcr-fm.org.au for tickets. Just get a quick plug in for that while I'm here, because I'd not stop plugging it till it sells out. Okay, Dom, let's jump into your mixtape tracks, mate. And I asked you to make up an imaginary mixtape I gave you six tracks to pick for your mixtape. And as I always do when I make up a mixtape or a playlist, I always go in with a banger, a attention grabber, track one. So what did you pick for that, mate?
Yeah, well, I went with Deep Purple, Fireball. You know, there was a few contenders, quite a few contenders actually, but that song goes back to my, 17, 18-year-old Dom, where my brother and I would be sitting in the lounge room. We'd put the album on, and obviously Fireball, it's just this killer, a track by Deep Purple. It's so energetic, so powerful, with the drum intro in pace, with that double kick drum intro thing that he does, and then it all jumps in with Richie Blackmore and the fuzz bass guitar solo, and it's just an exhilarating track. So you asked for something that would sort of start off with a bit of a bang. I thought of that one anyway.
Yeah, no, it's a great choice. It kicks the album off as well. I think it's track one on that album as well. Yeah, superb choice.
Yeah, we're big Purple fans when we were young, and we still am a big Purple fan.
Yeah, no, fantastic choice, mate. Great choice. And for track two, Dom, I asked you to pick a song that you sing loud and proud when you're on your own in the car or the shower, mate, for your mixtape. What did you pick for that?
Yeah, I'm not much of a singer in the shower. So it's pretty much the car. And, it depends. Like if I've got the radio on, a song will come on and I will start singing along to it. It could be, like I love the Bee Gees. And when I hear a Bee Gees track, I'm always, singing along to their stuff. But one song that I love to sing when I hear it is Everybody's Talking by Harry Nilsson. It's just a great, well-written tune, and I love the track, and it's a good one to kind of get lost in when you're driving the car.
It's a fantastic road trip song, I think that, and
I love that
song. I can't listen to that song or even talk about it without thinking about Midnight Cowboy. I don't know if you've seen that movie. It features quite heavily in the soundtrack to that movie. Fantastic. I remember watching that movie as a young man. Oh, yeah, great. You could have had that as your track three as well, Dom, because I don't know if you know, but that is a cover version. Harry Nilsson's not the original version.
Yes, it is. That's right. Yes, it is. It is a cover version.
Fred Neil did the original of that.
That's right.
I'm a big Tim Buckley fan, and I got into Fred Neil because Tim Buckley's covered a couple of his songs. Yeah, so fantastic choice though. And if you're watching this or listening and you haven't seen the movie Midnight Cowboy, get yourself to, you can't really, I don't know what streaming service it'll be on one of them, I'm sure. And it's a fantastic movie. Well worth checking out.
Harry Nilsson is such a versatile singer. He's got an amazing voice. Like you probably know Harry Nilsson like I do. Some of the songs that he sang through his career, like something weird like Coconut, and something like Without You when he does that version of that song, and Me and My Arrows. Just a really great singer, and you sometimes you can't relate the two. Like Everybody's Talking and Without You, if you didn't know the artist, you wouldn't think it was the same guy.
Yeah,
I remember how good he was.
My first exposure to Harry Nilsson was my stepdad was quite influential on me in terms of music that he used to listen to. Like my parents and my stepmother, awful taste in music, just terrible. But my stepdad had, when he first came to live with us, he had this like case of cassettes, and they all had this red tape on the outside of the case. Like you used to get like an old school Dymo labeler but it was raised. You could read it like Braille. And he had all these tapes. He had The Doors. He had Rolling Stones, Sticky Fingers. I remember all these great albums that he used to have on cassette. And I remember looking at Nilsson, Schmilsson, and I used to think, like, what's gone on? His tape machine's broke there. Like, why is it spelt like that? Like, I couldn't work out, like, what Schmilsson, what's this? What does that mean? He must be German or something.
I think he had a pretty good sense of humour, old Nilsson.
Yeah.
Because I love that album he did. He did all those standards, those really old standards he did, and he did a great job. That album is a really beautiful album too.
Yeah, no,
I remember
fantastic.
It was something that was like at the time, he'd gone from these chart-topping hits to doing an album like that, and everybody went, what the hell's he doing?
I love the cover art as well on that. It was just in his dressing gown, not giving off just whatever, having a smoke. Just got out of bed in his slippers.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Love that. Yeah, it's one of my favourite albums.
Very casual.
Okay, and track three, Dom, I asked you to pick a cover version, mate. What did you pick for that?
Yeah, well, I picked Creedence Clearwater Revival's I Heard It Through the Grapevine. That one is a sentimental choice. There was two that I chose it from. I love the version of All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix. It's just an amazing recording and just it's fabulous sort of interpretation of that song. But yeah, I heard it through the grapevine for me because, again, it sort of goes back to when I was like 14, 15, again, with me and my brother, on the parents' radiogram, we had like an album called Creedence Gold, and it had it had that on there. And, we'd be sort of sitting there playing, the air guitar and air drums to this song, because the guitar solo goes on for a long time. But I just think it's a great rendition of that song, because when it comes to soul music, black music, it's pretty hard to kind of do good versions of that kind of music, because, those guys have got it all. And back in the 60s and 70s, there were some pretty good versions of, great hits, like, that Marvin Gaye song, for example. It's a killer version. And, to me, it's always been dangerous territory to try and do soul and black music, I like to sort of listen to it and just be in awe of it and go, wow, how good are these guys? Just effortless, I don't know if I really want to tackle that song, even though I love it. I could never really do it justice. They did some good versions of sort of good old sort of black standards like Ray Charles things and that. Screaming Jay Hawkins, they did. I Put a Spell on You and things. They did, John Fogerty was, he was really, he was on fire.
Sensational vocals on that. I mean, there's you to cover a Marvin Gaye song, and not only a Marvin Gaye song, but one of his most well-known songs.
Well-known one.
That takes some stones, mate, and some vocal chops. And I wouldn't say it blows me away, their version, but it's a decent job. Do you know what I mean? Like, they've done really, really well.
It really is. It's like a garage band would do it, and they do it well. It's kind of convincing in that garage band style, So it's got a feel, and I think the thing about Creedence is that they had a really great rhythm section, and they pull off the groove well, in their own way,
Yeah. I'm just going back to All Along the Watchtower quickly. That's quite often the conversation comes up during this track of cover versions that I personally feel are better than the original, and that is one. That is way streets ahead better than the Bob Dylan version. No disrespect to Bob Dylan, like, that's just what he's done with that is unreal. Like, it's just an amazing cover version.
It's just brilliant. It's a brilliant piece. It's a piece of art. That song, I think, the way it's been mixed and produced, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, and track 4, Dom, I asked you to pick a song you wish you could have played to your 18-year-old self. What'd you pick for that, mate?
Yeah, well, I grew up, listening to sort of Beatles, Creedence, I suppose, Bee Gees, early Bee Gees, and a lot of top 40 and T-Rex and those sorts of things came along. The radio was pretty cool back when I was growing up, in that there was lots of crossover stuff, from country artists. So, the songs that they were playing on the radio, they're all great songs, well written, well produced, showing my age a little bit, but, that's what I was exposed to. So things like the Stooges were never even heard of back then. So, and that's a band that I came to love later, when I was, sort of in my 20s, when I finally discovered those albums. I remember always seeing Raw Power in the record racks and seeing that cover and thinking, wow, who's this guy? He looks pretty wild. And I finally bought that record. That was the first record I bought. But then, I sort of discovered the others. And I just, if I was 18 years old and someone played me that record, Funhouse and that song Down on the Street, sort of opens it up. It just blows your mind. It's just raw, got a pulsating groove. It just captures, some like raw energy of rock and roll. And they call it punk rock, but to me, it's just rock and roll. It's got a great groove, and they're a Detroit thing, so that must have been influenced by the black music as well that was there. It's just got everything. It's got the swagger that I love in music. Yeah, I wish I discovered that when I was like 18.
Yeah, I think I read an interview with Iggy Pop about that record, and I didn't sort of realise from listening to the album years ago, but then as soon as I read it, it made perfect sense that he was heavily into Howlin' Wolf at the time, and you get that, like, when you listen to his vocal, especially on that track, Down on the Street, like, there's a real, like, sort of Howlin' Wolf sort of vibe. Obviously, Howlin' Wolf's untouchable as a vocalist, but yeah, I did. As soon as I read it, I was like, oh yeah, it does sound like that. Like, he has got a bit of Howlin' Wolf about him in that track, definitely.
Yeah, it's just got a primitiveness that's just powerful, and it's great recording too. It's so sparse, but it's just so powerful. Yeah.
I read up a little bit about the recording of that because I knew we were going to be talking about it, and they turned up at the studio, apparently, the Stooges, and it was all like soundproofed and set up and as a studio is. And they did one take, I think, or a few run throughs of a few songs, and they were like, no, this is shit. And they ripped out all the soundproofing and everything and set it up like a live show, and played like that. And that's how they ended up recording the album. Like you say, it's got that sparser sort of raw sound that you get from a live show. Yeah, fantastic choice. Yeah, I made me revisit that album because I haven't heard that album for donkeys. And yeah, it's just why I love doing this, because it prompts me of stuff that I haven't listened to for ages and introduces me to new stuff. And yeah, it's fantastic. So what I do, Dom, if you're listening to this on the radio, then obviously you will know already, because you would have heard us talking about the songs and dropping the songs in between the chat. Obviously, if you're listening on the podcast or the YouTube channel, there's a description. If you drop down into the description, there'll be a link to a Spotify playlist, so you can jump out and listen to the songs that we're talking about, because I'm not allowed to include them in the podcast because they're licensed content and, blah, blah, blah. But it just gives it so much more context when you talk about the songs and then you hear it straight away afterwards. It just sounds better. It's a better listening experience. So yeah, drop down in the description and you can listen to the songs that we're talking about in the accompanying Spotify playlist. Okay, track 5, Dom, something I've done many times over the years. Put a track on your mixtape to let the listener know that you're romantically interested.
This was quite a hard one. Look, I like this song a lot, and I'm a big Bacharach fan. Al David Bacharach songwriting is just amazing. And this particular song, the way Dusty Springfield sings, and she's an incredible singer. What a voice! Is so sultry and just oozes kind of emotion and love. I suppose the way she sings it is just it's very sexy as well. Every time I hear the song, I love it. So
yeah,
this is one that I thought of. There's a few, but this is just a beautiful song, and it was one of my faves.
They don't come any more classic than that, I don't think. Dusty Springfield and Bacharach and David. That's a winning combo all day long.
Isn't it?
Yeah, superb choice, fantastic choice. What I've started doing, Dom, as well, is I've got 6 Spotify playlists. So I've got all the track 1s on one playlist, all the track 2s on another playlist. So cool. Every week I start adding to it so people can come on and just get all the attention grabbers on one playlist, all the cover versions on another playlist. Yeah, I've started doing that. Cool. Yeah, so that's really good. I really get a buzz out of listening to those playlists. Okay, and finally, Dom, track 6, and a song that's maybe a little bit left field, a little bit obscure, something that people may not know, just to round out your mixtape. What did you put on there, mate?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of choices here. Yeah, I'm a bit of a music kind of tragic, I suppose, and I've listened to a lot of music, and there's a lot of obscure stuff that I've heard. But this one here, Alia, I think that's how you pronounce it. Bonnie Iris. I don't know. Do you know this one, Mark? Have you come across it?
I put this question in the mixtape purely so I get introduced to new music that I may not have heard before. Because, like yourself, I'm a music tragic, right? I've got thousands of CDs, hundreds of records. Do you know what I mean? My MP3 folders are bulging, so there's not a lot that I don't already know. So I put this question in just to get introduced to obscure stuff that I might not have heard before. And I'm not 99 times out of 100 when it comes to this track, I've not heard of the track. So I had to go on YouTube and look it up. Amazing, brilliant choice, absolutely loved it. Yeah.
I come across this song. You must have heard of Countdown, right? The TV show. Yeah, and that's where I first heard it and saw it. And this guy comes on the film clip. He's wearing a yellow dinner suit, right? Canary yellow. Yeah. And he looks like a sort of 80s kind of demented kind of Buddy Holly or something.
I thought he looked like a young Eugene Levy. Do you know Eugene Levy, the
Yes,
actor?
yes,
Yeah,
he
he
does.
looks like a young version of him, doesn't he?
He does look like him. And, and he's got a black bow tie. And this song's got so much crunch to it. And it's just got a great hook and amazing production. And I love the harmonies in the background and everything. It's just one of those tracks I love. When I hear it, I love it. It's quite an obscure track. I think it was a one-hit wonder for him. I don't think he didn't have that kind of, rock star looks, I suppose, that could make him into a superstar. The actual song is a killer song, I think, anyway. A little bit of a, I guess one of those guilty pleasures for me, that one.
Yeah.
Apparently it was used for, I think the baseball team or something the city that he came from. I think they took it on as their theme song.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah.
I must sort of look up his Wikipedia just to find out a bit more about this guy, Datura. But yeah, the film clip's a classic.
Yeah. And, he's punching well above his weight in that video and all. She's gorgeous, that girl he's dancing with. Leah, I'm assuming. Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's short or the girl's really tall. I don't know, but
amazing guitar sound on the solo as well. It left me really wanting more. Like, there was only a really short instrumental break. And I was like, it kicked in. I was like, I'm loving this. And then as soon as it came, it went again. It was only a few bars and it was gone.
Yeah, and
I was loving the sound of it.
Yeah, it like you look at the video and the actual the song itself. They don't seem to kind of like, you think, wow, that's a really odd, because the song's so powerful and really crunchy guitars that are just like, and a heavy bass line and drums, and it's classic sort of late 70s, early 80s production.
Yeah.
Two crunchy guitars either side, and that guitar solo comes in the middle. And these amazing sort of harmonies, layered harmonies that really help that chorus along. It's really unique. It doesn't sound like anything else.
No, they spent about $20 on that video, I reckon, back in the day.
It looks like it, yeah.
Low budget, yeah. But yeah, it works well. And like you say, fantastic tune. On that note, Dom, thanks so much for joining me on the Mixtape this week. I really, really appreciate your time, mate. For gig tickets and invisible hits, the vinyl, the downloads, and everything else, all the info on the band, Datura4.com is your one-stop shop. Thanks very much, Dom. Appreciate it, mate.
Pleasure, Mark. Thanks. That's been fun.
Mate. That was the Mixtape podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to jump up to the top of the page and smash that follow button, and you'll be notified every time there's a new episode, or follow me on Instagram @TheMixtapePerf. Till the next time.